to give us suggestion on how they think this should go forward. Okay, we have a bishop there.
Please come forward. Please come forward.
Maybe you can let us know your name.
My name is Kanga from the National Council of Churches of Kenya. And we have nothing to add or nothing to subtract. But as Nate has said, we have an all-round task force to put everything together and then we put in action. Simple. The vision is there. The vision is documented. The vision is be sold to people. The people have to buy it. We give it time and then be accomplished before 2030 as we move on. It will be illogical to know that we have today and you don't think about tomorrow. You have tomorrow, you don't think about a day after tomorrow. If you do that, that's illogical. We have the vision, have an all-round task force to do the needful, collect information, sell it to the people, come back again, and then get running. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Somebody from the private sector? Yes.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I'm Dr. Ruto Eric, the President of the Kenya National Chambers of Commerce and Industry. We're very happy with this vision because, Your Excellency, if you look at Vision 2030, on the political wing, I think we scored 100%, if not beyond. In terms of the social aspects, we most likely scored 80%. But when it comes to the economic side, Your Excellency, I think that is where we are not doing very well. That for us in the private sector, when you tell us that we want to go to Singapore, I was seated there and I was thinking, I should be very proud as a Singaporean that Kenya today is at standstill and we want to go to Singapore. Us in the private sector, when you tell us that our turnover should increase 40, 50 times, we want to do business where there is wealth. And Your Excellency, we are 100% in support as the Kenya National Chambers of Commerce that we represent all sizes of businesses from across the country, as far as Mandera, as far as Lamu. I was there 2 weeks ago, that we welcome your idea that this become a citizen-driven and multi-stakeholder-driven, and with the private sector, we want to assure Kenyans and Your Excellency that we will be in support and we will be in each and every village in this country so that we can collect their views and bring it here so that we can be able to see that Kenya. When you talk about 2063, as in the private sector, we are seeing that it is too far. Because when we wake up in the morning every day, we want to be wealthy. And that wealth that you want to create for us, we want to see it even if it's possible. We are impatient. We should see it in 2030. So that 2030 we can start another agenda of 2100. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Today is the International Youth Day. And we have huge representation of young people in our midst. Can I get one young person to come to the stage? And there is a lady already there, yeah? Allow the lady in maroon to give us an idea as to how do we take this forward in your context. Apart from hackathon, how else do you want us to take this forward? Na kabla hujasema, utatueleza bag ni ya nini?
Thank you so much, Mr. President. They do say, power is done what? Is grabbed. Sindio? So I came for my chance. My name is Ruth Kemto Ziko. I come from Bomechi University. I'm the school president. Nilinua mkono huko sana lakini hawakunipea. So nimeamua kuikujia mwenyewe. So Mr. President, before maybe I give on the way forward, I had some good agendas that I wanted to give on this vision beyond 2030. 2030 is for the youths, is for the children that were here. So whatever that the parliament, the people sitting here will be doing is for us. It's for the coming generation. So give us the voice. Give us time, we give you our grievances. Number one, let's talk about, you are talking about Singapore. Singapore sahi haina deni. So as we think on going to beyond 2030, let's think on how can we get away with all the debts that Kenya is having for any country. Number two, I'm talking about constitutional implementation. Women, we are the majority in Kenya, right? Why can't we implement the constitution to have the president, if it's a man, let the deputy be a lady, right? And lastly, being honest, Mr. President, employment is what the youths want. But not every youth will be employed because sisi ni wengi na sisi wote tumesoma. But because unemployment is an issue to us, why don't you bring up the policies that will give funds to innovators, fund talents, fund support different people, give them money like the Nyota for self-employment. And for that, Mr. President, bring Nyota to universities and colleges. We are innovators too. And lastly, it's about the help, scholarship, and funding in different universities and TVETs. As we think of beyond 2030, let's make education free for every Kenyan child, from primary, secondary to high school. Let no child cry because eti akwenda university juu akwa na pesa, si ndio? Make it free. And lastly, me being a teacher of special needs education, as that young man said, factor in these special needs people. They are being left behind in our society. For the first time, with the government, bring them in. Otherwise, Mr. President, you are doing a good job. For all the president when tumejua hapa nyuma before tuzaliwe na wengine wamekuwa uko number 1 for now. And kwa yote, you called me to give give on what the way forward.
Yes.
One of the way forward, include these university students in that. Bring research everywhere. If it's each county has a university. And Mr. President, if there is a county that has no university, in this vision beyond 2030, include every county to have a university so that it can factor in every learner. So for that, include the university students, the college students, and the high school and primary students. I've seen one here. She's very clever than me, in fact. So let's have their views because they are very educated. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. I think that wraps up. She has said very fundamentally that education must be free. And I agree with her 100%. And that speaks to our members of parliament. You know, we have sent to parliament the tertiary education placement and funding bill. Tertiary education funding, placement and funding bill. We want that bill as soon as possible to get out of parliament so that we can implement a program that every child that is placed in a learning institution, in a TVET, in a Kenya Medical Training College, or in a university, all of them get funding for their education without exception. And that learning and education is not pegged on the ability of the parent. It is pegged on the intellectual capacity of every student. You do the course for which you are suited and you have applied for. And government of Kenya must make sure that funding is available. That is already in the works. And you have told us we should include young people, we should include universities in this process, and therefore I think we are set. Thank you very much. Hand it over to the people running the program.
All right, and at this point I'd like to say let us all just give a warm clap to ourselves, appreciating the fact that when history is written, your name will be written as one of those who sat through the process that changed the trajectory of this country. Another loud clap for yourselves, please. Your Excellency, with your permission, that brings us to the end of this session. I'll request that we all be upstanding. We shall finish with the national anthem as our prayer, which we all know, so let us have the national anthem as our closing prayer. The anthem.
But I would rather that we all agree on what next. Let me say two things so that I can suggest, if I may. Listening to everybody who has had the privilege of the mic here, I am persuaded beyond reasonable doubt that we have what it takes to design the next future for Kenya. Listening to the young people here, listening to people from the private sector, listening to the tech community, listening to the civil society teams around this table, and all the other professionals, it is clear to me that we have what it takes to think about the future, that Kenya cannot afford to drift into the future. We have to have a plan for that future. I have listened to the young man, sorry, I don't remember his name, who talked about startups, and that is the next horizon. That is the place where we'll create more jobs. The tech space. And he has even suggested that there should be some compulsory learning around technology because that is how the future is going to look like. Maybe we may not go all the way to make it compulsory, but we provide sufficient incentives to make sure that there are more people in that space. And all the other suggestions that have been made around this forum. My suggestion is that, as I said earlier, this should not be a government project. Government should facilitate this conversation. Article 3 of the Constitution obligates each and every Kenyan individually to protect and defend the Constitution. We are discussing in this conversation how we are going to actualize some of our constitutional rights, whether it is access to health, whether it is, as has been said here very ably, whether it is access to education, the best quality education, whether it is how we are going to deliver on making sure there is no hunger, every Kenyan has something to eat, and not just something to eat. We have been told here nutrition is very good for our children. How do we make sure that that is available? All the way to every other constitutional right that has been provided for by our Constitution. How do we do that together? So my suggestion is that we put together a multi-sectoral team chosen by the different sectors. The religious sector can give us people, private sector can give us some people, knowledgeable. Civil society can suggest to us who they want. All the other sectors can suggest to us who they want in this team. Because learning from what we have done in the past, and I have been part of those processes, whether it is the constitution-making process or all the other processes, we've always done it together as Kenyans. Not by government appointing people, but by citizens suggesting leaders who can lead this process into the future. So my suggestion, and it is not, it's just a suggestion, is maybe we ask different sectors to suggest people who can lead this process into the future, people they trust, people they believe in, so that they can lead us in this process. And then maybe that group of multi-sectoral committee or leaders can then give us a roadmap. If we need a body of experts to help us think through and to consolidate all our thoughts, my suggestion would be whatever it is that we do, they should not go and dictate to citizens what they think. They should go and listen to citizens, for citizens themselves to tell us how they want this to go into the future. I also agree that part of the challenge we had with Vision 2030 was that it wasn't underpinned by any law. It was a mere suggestion. And therefore, different administrations decided what to do. They were not obligated in any way to implement the national vision. So others came, reversed this, others came, tried to push that, and it wasn't coherent. If we do not have a coherent plan, then we drift. And therefore, it is important that we also agree on legislation that is going to guardrail Kenya into where we all want it to go. So that whoever is in office, whoever the president is, they cannot sabotage our collective progress. Or they cannot interfere with where we want to go as a nation. It becomes the responsibility of every leader who has an opportunity to take us faster into the destination we agree as Kenyans. So that would be my suggestion on how we take this forward. I am sure there are many suggestions around this table, and we must agree, or let me request that we agree, that if my suggestion is good, I must be willing to give way to a better suggestion by somebody else. And if that somebody else's suggestion is better, they must also be willing to give up to the best suggestion so that we can all move forward together. So that would be my suggestion. Maybe other people can also have an idea of how we take this forward. Because I think one thing is a given, that we are here, it is now upon us, Article 3 of the Constitution, that we are obligated to think about how we move. And each one of us has as much obligation as I do as a citizen for us to give our input of where we want Kenya to be. I deliberately avoided in my statement 2060 or 2063 or 20. That should be also a suggestion by Kenyans. Beyond 2030, what do we want to call it? How do we want to frame that future? And we want to do it together. Finally, I want to ask those of us who are here. We have student leaders, we have religious leaders, we have business leaders, we have political leaders. We must not abscond duty. We must not run away from responsibility. I know there is a temptation. We have civil society leaders. All of us have a stake in Kenya. So sometimes people want somebody else to do. But you know, that somebody else could as well be yourself. So each and every one of us must take ownership, and we must not escape responsibility or run away from our obligation as leaders. And that is why I'm asking all the leaders to work together so that we can facilitate all the citizens to participate in this process. I can just say from a government standpoint that we are available to make all resources available for this process to be truly people-centered, citizen-driven, future-looking. We are ready for that. Thank you very much. Maybe just so that we can benefit from some wisdom, we have one of us, an elder in this room, Dr. Oburu Oginga. He should also...
And as he comes, we may have our seats. Asante sana.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, Deputy President, and all protocols observed, dear delegates. Delegates, I'm also just one of you. I'm so impressed, highly impressed by the energy of the youth. The youth has so much energy, and I'm happy that our country has a future. Because when you have such vibrant youth, then you know that this country will be in safe hands. And the development of this country to the level of Singapore. Ladies and gentlemen, my late brother used to worry the president, and he used to worry us in the party when we were drafting our own manifestos, that how can we, if at independence in 1963-64, Singapore was exactly at the same level of development as Kenya. Singapore, in terms of income per capita, in terms of the NDP, in terms of GDP, and the development growth, we were exactly at the same level. And my brother used to ask that question. What did Singapore do to rise up to a level where their incomes are now 40 times, incomes per capita are now 40 times that of Kenya? We must think as Kenyans. Where did we go wrong? And where did Singapore go right? That they achieved that level. Professor Hino, who was advisor to Raila when he was Prime Minister has given you where Singapore is and where Kenya is. He has not told you why Kenya is there and Singapore is there. He only told you where Singapore is. And where Singapore is reachable. We can reach it if we do what Singapore did. First, we must deal with this animal called corruption. Corruption is very difficult to eliminate. It is very difficult. I've traveled all over the world. But I know it is possible to build a society which is non-tolerant to corruption. We can build a society which is completely non-tolerant to corruption. We need also to reduce government wastage. Wastage in government. We need to tighten our belts, those who are in government. Let us tighten our belts for the people, for the sake of the people of Kenya. And let us make sure that our young population is educated. Education is the only equalizer. And there is no shortcut to education. You have to educate young people who are trained in technical subjects so that you can attract investment. Government can only do infrastructure. Government cannot do development. Development is for the private sector. Government can only participate a little here and there. But for you to attract the private sector, you need to educate the young people. You are not going to import labor from elsewhere. The labor must come from us here. We have to get employment, and the employment is creatable. We can create it only if we educate our young people, and we also need to invest in research. People are talking about development, but they don't think that industry needs innovation. And industry cannot invest in innovation because it is too expensive. In every development plan, government should invest and support universities so that universities develop their capacities to do research, and research which is related to the industries, so that the industries can be innovative and therefore we become competitive in the international market. Kenya must be competitive. The world is moving so fast, and you cannot sleep and think that you only want to feed your people. Feeding your people is a responsibility of the government, making sure that people are fed. But the government will not do your farming for you. Government can only make your fertilizer cheaper. But farming must be done by us. Government must facilitate. For those who have lived as long as I have, I don't know how many of them here. They don't know how difficult it is to gather like this. We tried it when we were struggling for the Constitution, and we gathered for a national dialogue in Bomas in the 90s. And we were caned, we were beaten up by police. Some people ended up in jail for fighting for that Constitution because the government did not like it. When the second bombers came under President Kibaki, the government was very supportive of the process. The government supported the process. But during the end, when the government realized that some of the ideas which are coming out of national dialogue is not favorable, the government decided to scuttle it. And therefore, that national dialogue came up to nothing. That Boma's draft is still there, lying in the shelves, and it was produced by Kenyans. So when you have a supportive president who has paid, who is ready to pay for this forum to continue, those of our colleagues who are missing here are missing an opportunity. And an opportunity comes only but once, it never comes again. If you miss it, you will never find it again. Because you will not find another President Ruto. Maybe another president comes with some other ideas and we will not like the ideas. I like the experts here. They are very good. They are very, very good. But you can be so good if you don't have a supportive president. You can have good ideas, but they will lie in the shelves for good. So take this opportunity and make your ideas catapult into fruition, and let us make sure that this forum comes out with a good vision which will guide Kenya up to 2060. 2060. Some of us will not be there. But we are so happy that Kenyans are thinking about it, and I'm so happy. Thank you very much. And I want to thank you. Power is there, and power is supporting you. Asante sana.
Thank
Asante
you.
sana. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A round of applause for Powerman. Thank you very much, Mzee. Thank you very much. I think by way of winding up, I want one governor to speak on behalf of the governors who are here to tell us what are their thoughts on how do we take this process forward. Also, to a representative
Kenya ya kesho na kesho kutwa. Asanteni sana. Wengi niliowachosha nayo, yupo kaka mwenye upa
Asante sana. Asante sana to Melody. And nafurahia kuona Joe amepiga makofi sababu ya kipara na ndevu. Unajua unanielewa ndugu wangu Joe. Lakini pia nataka kuwashukuru wanahabari ambao wako hapa, watatusaidia kueneza mazungumzo haya, wako kule. Na pale pia wale ambao wako online nataka kuwashukuru kama wanahabari. Kama mwanahabari mwenyewe nasema asante sana. I'd like to acknowledge a guest of honor who I have had the honor of meeting. Young Adrian, just to stand up and we give him a round of applause. He is 7 years old. As you would imagine, Your Excellency, young Adrian Gwethe has a very busy itinerary, perhaps even been as busy as yours, but he has cleared it just to be part of this national conversation. Let's appreciate him for gracing this launch of a national conversation of Kenya beyond 2030. Asante sana, you may have your seat, young lad, and he will be on stage to share one or two thoughts that he has about the future that he is looking forward to, that he will enjoy, he will realize, and that perhaps will outlive many of us here. But he's seated not too far from a generation that has seen it before. There's Professor Nyong'o and Professor Hino, who will also be here to give us a quick reflection of what they have experienced and what we can also realize as a nation. See, we're not just starting from thin air. We have something to look back at and look forward to based on what other republics have realized and are now living as a reality. So Professor Nyong'o and Professor Hino, we look forward to your remarks as well. Ladies and gentlemen, the people who will be on stage here will not be the experts per the definition that will be prescribing anything. This is just a conversation starter that we will come signifying that we will come to the people. We'll also be coming to you, seated all around us. And that's why we have this setup. We're having a conversation that is national, looking at the future of Kenya beyond 2030. And this will then, thanks to the media and the Fourth Estate, it will go to those who are watching us who are not able to join us here, and the conversation will definitely cascade to the corners of this nation. So to start us off, I'd like to call on a young law graduate who just graduated from law school, Migosi Maroa. Tafadhali, join us on stage to just give us a word from a youthful perspective of her hopes, as well as what she will be standing firm as a lawyer herself who's waiting to start practice. The one, yes, huyo ndo wakili namzungumzia to our security personnel. Ni huyo hapo ndo ataanza na sisi. Tafadhali mpishe aje, tumpe makofi akija tafadhali to start us off on her.
In the informal economy, if a woman has to negotiate with what time they leave the house. I'll talk briefly, Mark, about my own mother who runs a grocery shop. Yeah, my own mother will leave the house at 6 and not at 5 a.m. because her leaving at 5 a.m. means she not only risks being robbed, but she also risks being raped. Not many men think about being raped at 5 a.m. And at 5 a.m., I'll tell you the truth, transport from Kayole to Marikiti is cheaper than taking matatu at 6 a.m. when it's 100. If you take it at 5, it's about 50 shillings. And so she's losing money in terms of capital because of safety, yeah? And so when we don't integrate that, when I think about care work, and we've done such in this country, women spend about 4 to 6 hours on care work. And care work is the bedrock, it's the foundation of how this country runs when it comes to economic development. Who takes care of our children, who feeds our children. Most of us are here because someone is managing most of those details at home. I'm comfortable here because someone is taking care of my son at home, yeah? And so when we talk about development and don't expand it in terms of how can we reduce the amount of time women spend on care work, especially if we say they are the backbone of our economy. And so when I look at, Kenya at 100, and you ask me a question about, yes, running for office and where we are going to, when I look at even the representation of women and young people in this country, when we go down to the numbers and say, are young people represented, are young people included, what does data show us? If you look at the 2022 statistics, the numbers in 2022, we had 16,100 candidates on the ballot, from the presidency all the way to the member of county assembly, whether you are running in whichever political party or you are running as an independent candidate. 14,000 were men, only 2,000 were women. So if we talk about even achieving the 2/3 gender rule, it means even if the 2,000 women, all of them won, we still would not have achieved the 2/3 gender principle. And so then that begs the question, what are some of the structural issues that we continuously need to deal with so that we level the playing field for both women and young people? Because if we don't have representation when it comes to Kenya at 100, then it means the future we are building is incomplete because it leaves half the population out. And so for me, I'm reflecting on how we're looking at development in terms of what we are building, but also how do we expand people's freedoms and capabilities. Lastly, I mean, we talk about agriculture. I'm just going by also what other speakers have spoken about. We talk about agriculture, we talk about building more classrooms. But before a child enters the classroom, their diet is so important because data shows that if you don't have quality diet, you're going to have stunted growth. It has an impact on your cognitive ability. And so even as we think about building other classes, how are we thinking about the nutrition of our citizens so that we can be better in terms of contributing to the solutions of this country, and you're not struggling with stunted growth because we're already at 18% of stunted growth when it comes to children under 5 years in this country. And so for me, I think it's just us expanding the definitions to just not include, yes, infrastructure, but also look at how these other aspects of our lives intersect with development.
Thank you for that, Bina. Let's give her a hand for that holistic view and an expansion to the prism at which, and I'm passing it on to Marianne Musangi because she's kind of gone into what you would be looking at, and she's mentioned the aspect of a wider look and perspective of what we term as development. So it's not just the hardware, which 2030 has delivered, Vision 2030, the hardware, the infrastructure, but the holistic environment that brings safety into it. She's spoken to that. But for you, as the vice chairperson of the Association of Manufacturers, what does 2063 or 2060 look like to you, or at least what would you like it to look from the sector that you represent?
Thank you, Mark. I think we're all here to fight for a space and a seat on the table. I think it's very clear that all of us do need to have a seat on this table as we develop this Vision 2060. A vision needs to be bold and audacious. And if it's not bold and audacious, the country just won't move forward. Coming from representing Kenya Association of Manufacturers, the manufacturers, watu wangu, watu wetu, I've been sent here to say our vision for the manufacturing sector is to be the leading manufacturing nation in sub-Saharan Africa. Why is this critical? This is critical because currently today, the manufacturing sector has stabilized at the 7% mark contribution to GDP. Some may look at the glass half empty and say, oh, you're not growing. But you know what? We've been resilient. We have sustained at least that 7%. How do we grow to the next level? And why is it important we grow to the next level? It's important because even though we only contribute 7% to GDP, we actually contribute 16% to revenue KRA collections in terms of industry. We are one of the largest contributors when it comes to taxes. Employment, manufacturing sector is the second largest employer after government in this nation. So you can see, if we were to move from the 7% mark to where Singapore or Vietnam is, which is the 20% mark of their GDP, we're talking about employment of, direct employment of over 2 million people, if not higher, on an indirect perspective, because indirectly we create traders in the field. We create the matatu industry because we're the ones manufacturing the matatus itself. We would be far larger with regards to employment. And what does development mean in terms of a nation building, industrialization? It is driven by the manufacturing sector, and we can look at the history of that from many countries. The manufacturing sector is extremely critical. So truly, I am here to say that manufacturing does require a seat on the table because we impact all these industries, whether it's through backward integration. She talked about looking at nutrition, levels of nutrition. How do we add value to the foods that we grow? And not only that, how do we take that food and export it to China, export it to Spain, export it to the US? We have trade agreements with 70% of the world. Are we currently taking advantage of those trade agreements? No, we're not. Not even a third of that is being leveraged today. So what am I saying? The infrastructure is in place, but it just needs to be looked at. It needs to be prioritized from the top, from the leadership, that manufacturing must be developed. We must support the people who have been here since the 40s and the 50s. We have local families who have been here for a long time. How do we support those to show that this industry can thrive? Because when that situation looks beautiful, that's when others are attracted into it, right? And as it grows, it will also be able to pull in the small-scale enterprise workers, the small-scale, the mzee who's chonga ingado on the side of the road over there, the lady who in her kitchen is doing personal care and beauty products. They will then be included in the full economy and the industry to grow this nation. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And yes, as we look at a 2060 or 2063, you'd hand it, oh, he already had a mic, but just keep it handy in case there's a audibility issue. She's looked at a figure, 7%, which we can do better. Some may look at it half full or half empty. I'm sure you're looking at your glass as half full, or actually more than full than empty, based on your accolades in the recent years. As CEO of the Nairobi Securities Exchange, there is quite some achievements that you have gotten over the years. However, what do you want to guarantee as an environment to ensure that we keep it on the up and up? Not just sub-Saharan Africa, even globally, we have been given our credit where it's due. So what do you see availing a brighter future for the Nairobi Securities Exchange?
Thank you, Mark. I'm going to mention 3 things, and that will probably confirm why I was here very early in the morning, seated and waiting for this dialogue to happen. But I will start by confirming that, in fact, the Nairobi Securities Exchange, as part of the larger capital markets ecosystem, has benefited quite a lot, both from Vision 2030, as well as the current administration led by His Excellency. Case in point, 3 weeks ago, we crossed a historic milestone in our market capitalization, 4 trillion shillings. Okay. Earlier this year, as at the end of June,
primary healthcare prevention na primary healthcare
tuweze kuonyesha Kenya sisi tuko na agenda ya kuchukua Kenya to Singapore and beyond. Within Vision 2030 tunataka kupewa forum ama platform kama wanariadha tuweze kuketi na president tuweke mipangilio yetu kwa meza kama wanariadha ndio tukue considered pia sisi. Asante.
Basi, please pick two more questions from that side. We'll pick from this side. Naona hapo ndio mambo iko moto kabisa. Kisha tuanze sasa kumalizia. So 2 questions from that side as we also get 2 questions from this side as we get closer to winding up.
Civil society teams around this table.
Issue or a women's issue, but it treats femicide and violence as a national security issue that is actually a threat to our development. Kenya at 2063 is just not looking at building more classrooms, but also the quality of education that our children are accessing when it comes to those classrooms, the quality of diet our children are accessing before they even enter that classroom. And lastly, Kenya at 2063 is representative when it comes to women and youth being represented in political institutions. But we're not talking about a country where the median age is 19, but then the median age of a politician in the continent is 63, and you can get to see that gap. So a country where the majority of the citizens in this country are able to see themselves, not just at the table, but they are also able to shape the conversations on that particular table. Thank you very much.
So I think this is on. So I think what next is demonstrated by our open mic session. People need to be heard. So we need to convene these forums where people speak their heart, speak their vision. And then we need to listen. And then our committee of experts can craft those into plans that can deliver a lived experience that reflects the aspiration, the dreams of Kenyan people. Thank you.
Thank you. 3 things. I think the first one is, for us, from a capital markets perspective, we would love that the capital markets is embedded in Vision 2060. What does that mean? What that means is that every Kenyan, if you have a business, if you have a project, you are able to actually come to our market and raise capital seamlessly, without friction. We need to make that possible. Number 2, we need to be able to democratize wealth. Why? You know, I keep going back to our national anthem because I truly, truly do believe it's our regional vision. The national anthem talks about firm may we stand to defend. People will only defend something